issue. It's
Yes.
a global problem that we have.
Yes.
How bad is it, and then what should be done?
Every day we sit and watch our news. At any given time, we are discussing about government exporting a lot of labor
Yeah.
globally. So in Kenya, we will wake up and we are told we have bilateral agreements with Canada, Mozambique, etc., etc. But then, when you look at it now from that perspective, the biggest gap here is not like people have not gone to school.
We have.
Okay?
We really have.
They've gone to school.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But to bridge between that education quality and the reality outside here in the industry, that is what now makes you competent in terms of how well you can come in and demonstrate value when we look at you now from a human resource perspective.
Okay.
Let me just cut you short, Mr.
Yes.
Simon. You're
Yes.
talking about the education we get in school,
Yes.
and now the conversion to what is on ground.
Yes.
Does it mean there's a disconnect between the education system and the labor force in Kenya?
There is a very huge disconnect because honestly, you will not be surprised today to have a professor or a doctor who cannot come in and demonstrate to you what, for example, cost governance is. The efficiency within maximization of resources in a given environment. Be it power, be it on people, be it on financials, tools, equipment, etc., etc. So there is too much foundation that is being created to read and pass those examinations. But then when you come in now and bridge the same gap on what exactly is required in the industry, they are not really speaking to each other. I know the government is trying to correct the same through the CBC, starting now with the young kids.
Yes.
And of course the same conversation has now found itself into universities through the Commission of University Education.
Yes.
But then if you figure out when the education system changed in Kenya, it was about 1984 when the curriculum moved back to 844 system. So we are talking of almost 40 years of that burden which is already with us out here. And that's exactly where the problem is.
Oh, now, just from where you sit as a human resource practitioner,
Yes.
what needs to be done exactly to, solve this whole issue of the disconnect between the workforce and the education?
The reality is you cannot tell someone who finished school like 20 years ago to go back to school. So really, the human resource practitioners have now a responsibility to transition themselves in mindset, to also perceive these people as human beings, and equally now fit themselves in their own shoes in terms of this gap. So what really do we invest a lot of our time in? We need to seriously venture into on-the-jobs trainings that are not only one-off per this specific role, but equally gradual and 360 in terms of bringing in all stakeholders within the organization, specifically the employees, to come in and be trained on how best to interpret an organization from the perspective of an entrepreneur. So really, what I'm trying to mean is that at the top here, we had mentioned about an organization key results or goals or and objectives. But from the representation of now the human resources at capabilities level, how best can we come and understand and interpret and break down and crystallize and bring about foundations in the form of systems, in the form of processes, procedures, and breaking tasks and roles into achievable roles to marry and agree with that particular vision of the organization. So we really have to work so hard and engage the employees as much as we can to really think and figure out what contributions are they making at the end of the day when you look at an organization at singularity of purpose.
All right.
Yes.
Just hold it right there, Simon.
Thank
we need
you.
to take a very quick break, but we'll be back in a few moments. Don't go away.
Thank you.
Saturday Saturdays from 10 a.m. It is Saturday Vibes with your guy David King. A revolution is taking place on Saturday Vibes. Brand new tell a team to tell another team to tell another teenager to tune in. A show for communities with exciting dance music and inspiring sessions. Vibes.
Simon, gospel fisherman. Simon, kujipiga konde. Simon,
Lakini mziki tunacheza hata tukiwa wagonjwa tu nao. Una dance kimoyo moyo, una dance kimoyo. It's a game changer. Saturday Vibes with David King. Saturdays from 10 a.m. Listen and live.
Forgiving others is one thing, but when we are faced with the need to forgive ourselves, it's another battle altogether.
How do you forgive yourself when you let yourself
We can
down?
continue on with that thought. Amalize kutuambia
What needs to be done.
Fully unpack God's truth on the issue of forgiving
that's the real issue.
ourselves.
Actually, that's the real issue.
I can see that the conversation is getting to the real issues.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. You know, you list it in a problem statement perspective, but
Yeah.
when it comes now to breaking it down, it will connect as one.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So let's just build on that then. We may not even get so much into the script
Yeah,
that we have,
yeah, sure.
but if we have to, we can refer. Itakuwa nini moja? Itakuwa 5 minutes tu. Before business.
What do you do?
No, we have to get in. Because to get music, we will
You lose time.
a lot of time. All right, we're getting back.
All right.
Right, welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with the conversation today on employee productivity, and if you ask me, so many, pertinent issues are coming up here.
Yeah, sure. Very true.
And I love what Simon was saying, and we'll allow him to continue with that thought,
Yes,
Simon.
yes.
You were mentioning about the HR now coming in and trying to bridge the gap.
Yes.
Please carry on.
Thank you. You know, when you look at this particular conversation, you'll actually note is both a topical issues and a concept altogether. A topical issue from the perspective of the fact that HR has evolved over time, from the era of personnel administration, when you'll get scolded to out of reporting at work 10 minutes past time, regrouping to reason on how easy to break a task and make it more exciting, will be converted into ganging up against an organization or the HR. And of course, the militarization of this particular process. More of a time when you are starting off to work, you will spot your boss in the HR department, and within not second you will have disappeared from the scene. So it was more like a militarization conversation from the HR office. But then we need to appreciate there is a lot of evolution where the human resource practitioners come in and look at an organization in terms of structures, on how best you come in and create structures and processes that mechanize how simple and how simple and easy it is to actually break down a role or a task at any given time. But then when you look at this particular conversation, you'll actually be wondering, how then is it topical once again? We understand we are into digitization era, where people or value is now attached to what is it that you're bringing on the table, as opposed to how many man hours you are putting in a particular task. And of course, this has highly been propelled by post-COVID, when we really came in to think again on the field of work in terms of our physical reporting to the offices. So really, there is a lot of mental shift that is required on the part of the human resource practitioners to really understand the business from the perspective of its own objectives, build capacity on in the form of now the structures and policy, and equally continuously improve the employees' capabilities through trainings, continuous engagements, recognition, and coming up with a wellness program. But then, at what point do you structure productivity conversation within an organization? Really, the conversation happens, the value add is actually drawn at the point of recruitment or onboarding these particular employees.
Okay.
It will be important to note personality in the form of attitudes and skill set of an employee or a human resource are very crucial when it comes to productivity, because they will really be a determinant.
You said
Personality.
attitude, personality,
which is a representation of attitude, mindset, okay, and equally now the skill sets. It is a key determinant of what competencies you would expect to draw from a specific individual in the form of an employee within an organization.
All right.
But then when you look at it now from the organization perspective, the trade that the organization is in, and of course the culture of that organization becomes quite critical within any given time. I can give you an example. If today we are in a milk processing plant at the factory floor, you will require to really focus more on quality, and of course the warehousing of the finished goods and the machine technicians, because there could be breakdown anytime. But then what is the real scenario here? While you're expected to bring in someone who has the expertise within those particular lines, the truth is the opposite. So you will pick a scenario where this particular machine technician or this particular quality controller is an agronomist. Okay? But then we are in the trade of processing milk.
Okay.
Okay? Right. So the conversation when it comes to productivity starts both top and bottom.
So you mean there is some level of misplaced skills?
A lot. Quite a lot.
Right.
Okay.
Quite a lot. An agronomist will fit very well when it comes to the positions of a CEO, because what is it that is required of a CEO? One is that they're in a position to build relationships, negotiate with suppliers, business partners, etc., engage the customers for more businesses, and get to understand what are their pain points, manage risks when you look at the organization end to end, responsible for operations, efficiency, etc. So they're not really built up within a foundation of monotony or skill in the form of an agronomist. So at the top there, they'll fit very well. But comes now to the actual craft or trade, when you have these agronomists, then what are we saying? And that's a very serious observation within enterprise. And how is it happening? We as HR, we leave out the focus of the organization along the fence or the perimeter.
Okay.
And when we occupy these offices, the competence no longer matters. What matters is how best I know you, how well are we related. So I'm in a position to bring in this agronomist to be in charge of quality, knowing very well that these people cannot actually manage to carry out a quality test of this particular product to ascertain how compliant it is. So really, from the basics, the trade of an organization will really matter.